Greetings, beautiful people, and welcome to the April 2020 um, Soulstainable Living Online Literary Circle Book Club. Tonight, we will be discussing the Thick by Tressie McMillan Cottom. So here's the thing. Facebook has, okay, I see it. Eileen, you are on here. Good stuff. Can somebody type a comment because I'm using a new log, a new database. Okay, Mika, my favorite librarian. Shout out to all my other librarians, but I have a special one at the Lyle branch. I'm trying to navigate this new screen. Kaylani, I see you on there. Kaylani, can you throw a comment in the comment section? Shabrina Cotton, I see you. I just want to be able to make sure that I can read your comments before we jump into this discussion. So this book that we will be discussing is Thick by and Other Essays by Tressie McMillan Cottom. As always, okay, Mika, thank you. As always, I'm not worried whether or not you read the book for this month, because these are some universal themes that the author is talking about. So we'll be talking about Black women and their identity, which is a multi-layered experience. As you all know, we have Black women on this thread. And as always, I will thank you, Kaylani. Hey, I can hear you. Hey, Tiana, day before your birthday. We're going to jump into this thing because there are so many themes and topics that I want to talk to you about. I want to also show you some merchandise we have. I'm rocking the Black Skin, Black Nose, Black Lips. Shout out to Elder Michael Campbell and Eldris Jackie Campbell. I got this from their North Star Rites of Passage, so please check them out and get you a shirt like this. It has the Nguzo Saba on the back. You see my Soulstainable Living pin rather. Mika, I gotta get some of these to you once we open back up in the world. We also have bookmarks for those of you who have been on my show in recent seasons. You get one of these bookmarks. I have pins, I have smaller pins, I have all sorts of stickers, bumper stickers. So I'll be giving that up once we open back up to the world. Here is the smaller version of the pin. All right, y'all. So I know this is an odd night. Normally we get together on the fourth Sunday of the month. Okay, you can hear me better now. Good stuff. So on the fourth Sunday of every month we get together. But for these past 2 months since we've been a Corona, we've been a little off schedule and my days and nights have gotten confused. So last month we met on a Tuesday. This month we met on tonight, which is a Wednesday. My goal is hopefully that we will be back on track for May, but always we'll have at least one meeting before the end of the month. So I want to get up into this thing. I know we only have a few people that have joined in right now. I teach, so I can talk by myself for an hour. It doesn't bother me at all. So I want to talk to us, and I wrote some notes down. I have read the book and listened to the book, so I am well versed in the book. And my daughter and my younger son were listening to the audiobook, and the audiobooks are something I'm just now getting familiar with. I never have been into audiobooks. I have to read the book so I can keep up with what actually is happening in the story. And so what I found that if I read a book for the first time, then I can go back and I can listen to the audiobook, particularly if it has a good narrator. And the audiobook for this is only available on Audible, not a commercial at all. Just telling you all, usually I get my audiobooks from the library. For those of you who are Rochesterians, you can download the Hoopla app or you can download Libby, both, because I have them both on my phone. And I just want to show you my library, my books that I keep. Oh, see, this is the thing. This is so, can you see it? Hold on, this is all awkward. Oh, okay, here we go. So these are the apps that I listen to on my phone and my iPad. I have the Libby app and the Hoopla app from our library right here, and they allow you to get audiobooks. The Hoopla app allows you to watch movies at home. So those are things I always promote. Always want to promote libraries. Even when I get my bookstore within the next year or two, I will always promote libraries. Always try to make connections. If you borrow a book first and then you try to buy it, get a coupon discount. We support libraries. So that being said, let us jump into this book. Now, what did I do with my book? Oh, Lord Jesus. I done lost the book in the house, in the couch. So I want to show y'all a picture of the author who has such a beautiful speaking voice. So this how you do? Oh, here we go. So this is the author, Tressie McMillan Cottom. You see that, oh, hold on, y'all. This is such an awkward thing. Oh, here we go. So Tressie McMillan Cottom is a dark-skinned black woman with full features, full lips. As she said, she is thick hair, thick features, thick skin. So when I talk about black women's identity, what I want to go through, I'm going to go through the book. Is written in, I think there's six to eight essays in there. But the reason with this book, it doesn't require a lot of literary analysis, is because it's nonfiction. These are things that are all true about her, things that she's experienced in her own life. And so this is going to be a safe space tonight for us to always talk about black women and our identity, talk about the ways that society sees us and treats us. So I want to start off, as I often do, by reading. Oh, you know what? I don't got to read it. She's going to read it to us. I want y'all to hear her tell us why she is reading the book, why she wrote the book. Let me go back to the beginning.
This collection represents conversations I have had with many wonderful communities, some that intersect and others that do not. I have been fortunate. My interlocutors include social theorists, historians, sociologists, anthropologists, writers, researchers, academics.
Wait, so that's the end part of it. And I don't want to rewind it because I don't want to lose my spot. Me and the kids have 4 more minutes to listen to. So she starts the book off by talking about her life. She's a bow-legged woman, and she talks a lot about her fixing her feet. Okay, so when we think about black women in America, and we think about the ways that our bodies have been parceled out, our identities have been siphoned off, we think about the ways that people make all sorts of comments about what black women are supposed to do, how black women are supposed to behave. We can examine the stereotypes of black women as superheroes. If you want to get it done right, you listen to a black woman or trust black women the first time. But what we don't realize is that these stereotypes are very harmful. That if we think that black women are angry, that if we think that black women are always strong, if we think that black women are superheroes and are responsible for saving the world, what that means is that there are very few people and instances where black women can rely on somebody to save them. And so those are the things that we want to talk about today. And those are the things that Tressie McMillan Cottom examines in her story, right? She examines the ways that society has forced black women to be these women who are always strong, these women who are always together, these women who always want to raise their families and always be in charge of not just their emotions, but other people's emotions as well. And so those things become very dangerous, particularly in times when we are feeling vulnerable, when we are going through our own stuff, when we are in need of someone to lean on. And because we believe that the stereotype of the strong black woman is a positive one, and it's one that we must fall prey to or adopt, very few of us maintain some level of vulnerability or even offer some level of vulnerability even when we're going through it. So if you know me in real life and you follow me on my regular Facebook page and not just this Facebook page, you know that my family has been through a significant amount of deaths, right? And I talk about my grief. I talk about the way that I'm feeling. I talk about the ways that I'm inside out and upside down, because what I want to do, and it's something that we talk about here all the time, is I want to get free. And if I'm going to get free, I want to bring my sisters along with me. So Tressie McMillan Cottom, what she's talking about in Thick is the ways that black women manage ourselves, the ways that other people want to have such a heavy hand in dealing with us. And very early on, she talks about her being bow-legged. And not only her being bow-legged, but her being pigeon-toed. And with her being bow-legged and pigeon-toed, her mother is always conscious of the way that her feet are. So the doctors want to have to do some antiquated surgery, break her legs and put her in braces. Her mother is like, no, I want you to fix your feet. And so when we talk about fixing your feet, that becomes a metaphor for not just her life, but the lives that black women share. And so I want to ask you, and I want you to think about some time that you as a black woman, despite any sort of pain that you have, despite what might feel better to do, that you've had to fix your metaphorical feet in order to get along, or as they say, go along to get along. You know, the ways that we can't always be vulnerable because other people expect us to show up and show out. When I was very young in my teaching career, we were going through the process of taking care of 2 young family members. And there would be days where I would be in the car crying. The kids were in the system, the foster care system, and they had a lot of things that were going on with them. And it required a significant input from my family in order to keep these kids together. And in order to keep these kids together, we had to be seen by social workers. We had, all sorts of home visits. And it was a very big disruption to my family's lives. I had 3 young children at the time. And this was a 2-year-old. My youngest child was probably 8 years old. And we were way past the potty stage. And I was newly hired on my job that was a tenure track position, one of only 2 black women in an department that was almost 50 people strong. There were days that I would sit in the car and I would boo-hoo cry. Boo-hoo cry, right? And when I boo-hoo cried, you're welcome, Adrian. When I boo-hoo cried, I had to go fix my face, fix my feet, and go back into my job. And I had to go back into a job where there were black and brown students who were looking in my face, and I was broken. So every time I read Tressie McMillan Cottom talking about fixing her feet and what that means in a real life, I'm looking at the ways that for us as black women, we have to fix our feet at work. We have to fix our feet at home. And we continue to push this narrative to each other that fixing our feet means that we are somehow more valuable. That if we can hold it together, that if we can take away any creases in our armor, any chinks in our armor, any sorts of vulnerability, any sorts of transparency outside of our circle, right? Then that means that somehow we have won the game, that we have mastered what white women call leaning in. Right? So when we lean in, we are not responsible for just ourselves. I gotta get my mouse. We are responsible for a ton of other people, because if black women are the superheroes that people think that we are, then we don't have the right to vulnerability. We don't have the right to show what we're going through. We don't have the right to share anything about being insecure, anything about being unsure, unsettled, frustrated. The only emotions that we are allowed is anger and loyalty. And loyalty is an emotion, because black women are expected to be caretakers. And Tressie McMillan Cottom talks about that in Thick. When you look at Thick and when you look at fixing your feet, what that means is that you must be presentable for a world that does not recognize your pain, that does not recognize your comfort level, that does not recognize, in many ways, your humanity. So many of us are sitting around and we are trying to fix our feet. So for those of you who are just joined, thank you so very much. We're discussing Tressie McMillan Cottom's Thick and Other Essays. Again, you do not have had to read the book before we got on here, because we are talking about universal themes. What I'm discussing now is fixing your feet. The example is that Tressie McMillan Cottom has been born with bow legs and pigeon toes and walks in a manner that is not conducive to her spine health, her hip health, her bone health overall. And her mother, who has taken her to see professionals, has warned her that she must fix her feet. But when we talk about fixing one's feet, for black women, this becomes a directive and a mantra, that when we look at ourselves, that we know what fixing our feet means. Fixing our feet means that we must prepare ourselves for a world that is not always kind to us, a world that is not always welcoming to us, a world that is not always comfortable for us. And so I ask my sisters before I go on, is there any example that you might want to share in the comment section about a time that you may have had to fix your feet despite your discomfort, despite your own physical need, despite your own lack? Okay. All right, for those of you who are just joining for the first time, we just engage in conversation. If you want to jump into the comment section with any sort of comment, you are welcome. If not, I will keep on going. And at any time, you can share your feeling about anything that I'm bringing up. We use the book as a way to thread the conversation together, but by no means is it the only way that we build community. Okay. So one of the things that Tressie McMillan Cottom talks about in Thick, she has an essay about beauty, about black women's beauty specifically. She talks a lot about black girlhood. And this is something that I want to tell people. And she addresses it throughout the essays. How many times have you looked at, hi Lisa, at a black young girl, no matter what her age is, and you have ascribed adult characteristics to her? How many times have you looked at a young black girl who might be 4 or 5, let's say 6 years old, and she might be dancing in what you consider to be a sexual manner, or she might have on some little girl, little short shorts, or you calling her fast, or you making some comment about, oh, she mannish or womanish. So what Tressie McMillan Cottom tells us is that we must be mindful about the ways that we describe Black girlhood and how we take their innocence away. So we have Kenya on here. I think about early times when I was told not to have natural hair on interviews. So in her episode, in her essay, Girl 6, she talks about our natural hair and the ways that Black women experience community, one, if they and through their hair care and their hair rituals, and how they experience the process if they have if they buy weave hair, how they experience immigration through their purchases. But Black women's beauty, Kenya, like you're talking about, is very specific. No other race of people would be told not to wear the hair that grows out of their scalp. The hair that grows out of their scalp to a job interview because it is not presentable. Think about that for a minute. Think about whatever you have growing. This is my natural hair right here, right? And the idea that a credentialed professional cannot go to her job with the hair that grows out of her scalp. But there are plenty of people on this thread who have grown up in households where they had to get their hair pressed on Sundays for the week because their hair was not considered respectable and their hair was not considered done or coiffed if they were not able to it shows some sort of straightened hair. And I read this, I think it was on Professional Black Girl with Yaba Blay. I love that Instagram. And also Kinfolk Collective with Lachey. One of the things that they talk about is how if you go back as a Black girl and you have natural hair and you look through your pictures of when you had special events, if you look back at the majority of the special event times, no matter how you wore Afro puffs during the week, most of our special events involved us having straightened hair. Think about that. That the times in your life when there were special occasions, you had straightened hair. Your hair was altered because we believed as a society and as a culture that Black women's hair needed to be tamed, right? So in addition to fixing our feet, we also had to fix our hair. And there are still some women in this world who believe that what grows out of people's scalp naturally is offensive and somehow needs to be done. And so what's significant about Tressie McMillan Cottom, like myself, she has broad features. Her nose is spread all across her face, lips spread all across her face. So she is identifiably Black to anybody who looks at her. And that is a very specific way to walk in the world. The way that she says it is, the way that she identifies herself as a Black woman matches up with how others see her. I'm going to say that again. The way that she identifies herself as a Black woman matches up with how other people see her. She sees herself as a Black woman. She experiences the world as a Black woman. And other people, when they look at her, they believe that they know for certain that she's a Black woman. So when we talk about race being a social construct, we have to be mindful that you only experience the race that you look like you are. I can't say that I'm mixed. I can't say that I'm biracial. I can't say that I'm anything other than Black. Now, what she calls Black ethnics, whether I'm American born Black, that's a whole other idea. But when you look at my skin and you look at my nose and you look at my facial features, these lips, Black skin, Black nose, Black lips, Black hair, Black everything, all Black. So how does a dark complected woman with a wide nose, with full lips experience the world? How do other people respond to a Black woman who's comfortable in her skin, comfortable in the things that make her Black? So she talks about how she has identified herself as ugly. As ugly. And people, Black women and white women, tore her stuff up because they said, you are not ugly. Tiana's saying this essay really tore me up because growing up, I felt so hypersexualized as a child. I used to have grown men, even family members. Hold on, this thing is really weird. Even family members to be very interested in me So that I always felt very uncomfortable, especially being mixed, because I was so exoticized for being black and Puerto Rican. Another thing that she talks about, thank you, Tiana, I want to unpack what you're saying here. So there's that hypersexualizing of a black girl's body. So when we look at black girls, little black girls don't ever get to be little black girls. Even if they have beads in their hair and diapers on. Oh, she's such a flirt. She is a baby with a pacifier in her mouth. But she is such a flirt. Oh, look at her. She thinks she grown. She 4 years old with a fruit snack and she thinks she's grown, right? But those are the way that we do to little black girls. Think about the last time you saw a little white girl and somebody said that she thought she was grown. I'll give you a minute. If that little white girl thought that she was grown, I bet you that she is imitating a Nicki Minaj in a TikTok video or something. She has some urban aesthetic to her, something that is described as non-white. So when we look at this hypersexuality that people place on black girls' body, exactly what Tiana is talking about is that people have looked at black girls' body, and she talks about R. Kelly in here, and how when people look at black girls' body, they talk about them being ready. In terms of, she looks like she's sexually ready, and a black girl and black women never get to be victims. So even though you had grown, capital grown men, family members be very interested in you, you know that you hold the responsibility according to societal law, because you would be the aggressor. Or look how you sitting. Look how you carrying yourself. I developed very early, and I told one of my girlfriends this the other day, I always had to be very mindful of being around men and women because of the ways that people responded to my body. A little girl still wanting to play with dolls and had grown people talking about my butt and my breasts and my hips. So that is very much true. And then the race thing, you're dark skinned Puerto Rican. People can't see you, but that's one of the things. You are black. You always lead with that. And that's what I like. So when we talk about race is a social construct, but it's one that is based on phenotype. Physically, who do we see? And there's a spectrum of what blackness looks like. But even when you look at someone like Rachel Dolezal, who should never have been able to, quote unquote, pass, and she addresses that in here, because she really does not look like what we experience black women to be. Kenya says, as a girl growing up in a predominantly white spaces, I tried to avoid situations where my race was called to attention. So we talk about performing respectability, talking white, whatever that means, making sure that we do good in school, making sure that we fix our feet. Because if we fix our feet and we minimize discussions about race, then of course they won't notice that we're black people. My 92-year-old grandmother talks about her not realizing that she was a black girl in that sense until she looked in the mirror when she was playing with some white kids. Like, she knew what being black was, but did not know what being black was until it was in contrast to whiteness. Kenya's responding to Tiana and says, I can relate to that. And then our value starts to feel wrapped up in being wanted. Yes, I'll always read the comments, because when you watch this again, you can't always see the comments. So I want you to know what's happening. Kristen Walker, shout out to Flower City Noir Collective. If you all are interested in finding out ways to help people in our community, talking about some economic justice, talking about being your own gardener, looking at books, literacy, safe housing, Flower, Flower, Noir Collective, Flower City Noir Collective, Noire. Kristen Walker is a part of that with Tanya Noel, so please check them out. Kristen says, fixing my feet is evident in the ways that I have internalized some of the things my mother passed down to me, mostly about looks and ladylike behaviors that never quite felt right. My facial hair, underarm hair, leg hair, and sideburns. Okay, so let's talk about that, because that deals with beauty in the ways that we experience beauty. When I was a very young girl, I got a razor, a very fancy razor. My grandmother got me plugged in, and I was instructed on how to shave every bit of hair off of my body. And so I grew up hairless, except for my private parts, okay, this grown up talk. And rejected any sort of errant hairs, and was really conscious of, okay, hair traps odor, but not really being conscious of my body is my body, and however I want to groom. I don't mean taking showers, I mean hair. You said facial hair, underarm hair, leg hair, and sideburns, right? And we think that those things are unattractive, that it shows a lack of hygiene or not being kept up, but that's not true. Even when Monique, the comedian actress, she was out a few years ago, let's say even 5 to 10 years ago, and she appeared on the red carpet. Kristen, you might remember this, with her unshaved legs. And at first, in my colonized mind, because I always talk about my colonized mind, you know, I grew up in the world and I'm still learning. I was like, she need to shave her legs. She don't even look done up. I mean, her hair was done, her makeup was done. And like you said, Kristen, here we go internalizing the things that, and my grandmother was born in 1927, so that's who raised me. And understanding that body hair, body hair that people could see, underarm hair, facial hair, long sideburns, if you did not groom those things, that you were considered mannish or not being ladylike, not being clean, a hippie, you know, you are doing something that black people simply don't do. And so fixing our feet means that what we do is we adapt to other ideas that people have about black women in their bodies, right? And so for me, I'm having to learn in this age, particularly once I had a daughter, that I don't have dominion over her body. I don't have the right to tell her what she should do with her body. And that's, you know, it can be radical. People don't like to hear that. But I stand firm that my 22-year-old daughter is her own person. Tiana says, absolutely. I spent so many years being so confused about how men viewed me in relation to how I viewed myself. When we start talking about desirability, it tackles twofold. One, what Kristen has presented to us about physical appearance. Two, what Tiana has presented to us about other people's lusting. That's also nuanced by what Kenya has said about the ways that we respond to how people want us. Because if the ultimate gaze, we spend time talking about the white gaze, but the male gaze or a sexual gaze, because every woman is not attracted to men. But even if you're not attracted to men, men still are attracted to women unless they're not attracted to women, right? So when we start talking about a sexual gaze on young girls' bodies and the ways that people protect young girls, Tressie McMillan Cottom talks about Charlemagne. She talks about R. Kelly, and she talks about the ways that black women's bodies have been sexualized. So some of you might know Hottentot Venus, whose body was divided up and, you know, paraded around the world for science, alleged science. We talk about Henrietta Lacks. I absolutely hate that book. Absolutely hate that book. Rebecca Skloot, the book is trash. You are trash. Your family is trash. And you should have stole that stuff from Henrietta Lacks' family. They need to have their money. You don't have the right to tell her story. You should have never been the person to tell her story. I hate that book. I never saw the movie. I hate the book because you got a white woman telling what happened to a black woman's body. And the only person that could validate that story died before the book was published. You talked about how that lady family was inbred. You talked about her family's mental capacity. You talked about how she put her finger inside of her vagina and felt the pearl of her cancer. You talked all up under her clothes. You talked about her family structure. You talked about how people were dumb and those people could not read that book. They couldn't read the book. And the only person that was literate that you spoke to was her daughter. And her daughter died before you published that book. So Rebecca Skloot not watching this, but you can add her if you want to share this on social media. It's absolute garbage. And when I got to the end of the book, I wept in the corner for 45 minutes because I understood very clearly the ways that we tell black women's narratives. That we paint them as freaks of nature, right? That we talk about the ways that their bodies are ready. That we have young girls at family barbecues and functions that can't even go get a can of soda because they worried about somebody touching them. And we let these girls go to places where we know relatives have touched us. And we put our daughters in harm's way and tell them not to talk about it. We talked about this when we did The Bluest Eye. We talked about The Bluest Eye because it's so very significant about the ways that we allow our children to be victimized in the same pattern in ways that we have been victimized. And Tressie McMillan Cottom tells us, she gives us the recipe that we are not safe. Oprah told you too in The Color Purple. A girl child, well, Sophia, and the family of men is never safe. John Walsh told us 30 years ago on whatever, I forgot the name of the show, America's Most Wanted. He said the way that you could prevent the majority of molestations is never to have a male babysitter. Like 99%, he said. And we know now, of course, that women molest children. We're not talking about that, right? We don't talk about that in decent circles. But we have to talk about the way that we respond to black girls' bodies, the way that we respond to black girls' breasts and booties, the way that we believe that when young girls are out there minding their business and dancing, that they somehow being fast. Yes, Kristen, you're right. It was a big thing for her to open up because people didn't see her as decent. So Carolyn says this book and paragraph, so this book and conversation is so interesting. The last paragraph of in the name of beauty was so eye-opening. So much of this truth hurts my heart. I can't even imagine. Yeah, the beauty thing, and we're going to spend a significant time talking about beauty because I want us to be better to ourselves. I want us to know ourselves. I want us to love ourselves. And I really want us to understand that when Tressie McMillan Cottom talks about her being ugly, oh, I got quotes for y'all before I go to the end. Hold on, let me get quotes. I'm ready, y'all. I was writing this thing. She says that the reason that she sees herself as ugly is not because she's physically ugly. This is not a quote. I'm just telling y'all. She's not physically ugly. But beauty was never created for black people. Let me run it by you. Beauty was never created for black people. So if beauty was never created for black people, then that means that you are never beautiful in the ways that white people see beauty. It doesn't mean that her as a black woman, she's not beautiful. It doesn't mean that she is not seen as beautiful by other people. She is talking about a construct of beauty that situates porcelain's alabaster skin, European features, blonde hair, and blue eyes as beautiful. Alabaster skin, blonde hair, straight blonde hair, blue eyes, keen European features, slim waist, no curves as beautiful. And that imagining of what beauty is, then of course me and other women who look like me are ugly. Because we will never be seen as the ideal. Now, I know I ain't nowhere near ugly. And sister girls, y'all nowhere near ugly. So when you joining it right now, I'm not calling you ugly. I'm saying that Tressie McMillan Cottom is a sociologist and she examines systems. It's why when you look at Hollywood black girls who are you got the Yara Shahidis. Okay, you got the fair-skinned black girls because that is what America says is okay enough for us to ascribe beauty to them. Kenya says, so many young girls who have built the walls around themselves and we call them hard, but who can they trust? Who can they trust when they're being raised by women who have been little girls too? Kristen says the same pattern is a word. That's the generation curse. It creates and continues the damage folks can then relate to. In here, she's talking about how when men are related to women and a man is accused of rape, he always wants to use his sisters or whatever as an example of how he could not be a rapist, or the women that are related to him are not hoes. So for an example, what we'll say to a rapist is, or somebody who's misogynistic or somebody who hates women, or we'll say, you got a wife. Would you want somebody to talk to your daughter like that? And I get to my husband. I'm not using my daughter, myself, his sister, his mama, his aunties, his nieces, none of them. You don't get to talk about women because, period. I don't care who they're related to. But what we do to malehood, we allow men to do whatever they want to do. Societally, patriarchy, we talking about that. We let them do whatever they want to do because nobody sees black women as having value. We talked about this before with Their Eyes Are Watching God. The black woman, well, she said the nigga woman is the mule of the world, right? Zora Neale Hurston tried to tell us. So I want us to make connections with the way that we look at books and let them be instructive with how we live our lives. Tiana says, the amount of times I have been told, oh, you are beautiful for being a black girl. Or my favorite, what are you? Suggesting that I must be mixed because I can't be both beautiful and black. And I know that the chapters on being ethnic blacks. So what she talks about is I identify as being a black woman. I never say I'm African American. If I say that, I must have hit my head, check my blood pressure, make sure I haven't stroked out, or there's a slip of the tongue. But I identify as being a black woman. When I say that I'm a black woman, a black is a race. So you can be black and Asian. You can be black and Latina. Right? You can be black in a myriad of identities. There are only a few races, and I talked about them before, Negroid, Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Australoid, and this one more I'm forgetting. But those are races. So I was black and white. You black, you white. That's it, right? And so when you look at race, you can look at me and see, like Tressie McMillan Cotton, that I am a black woman, right? But what you don't know is whether or not I am a descendant of an American, someone who's I hate to say slave, someone who was an American enslaved person, or someone who was, as she says, a descendant of the Great Migration, right? So you don't know where my family is situated historically. Until I open my mouth, you see my name, you hear my family. So you don't know whether or not I'm West Indian. You don't know if I'm African. You don't know if I'm, from Great Britain. Well, not so great, colonizing Britain. And so those are questions. But what America wants to do is create this hierarchy for someone to look at somebody like Tiana, who is Black and Latina, right? Who is a Black Latina, who has very curly hair, and say, what are you? What are you is not about the person. What are you is about the asker. Because what that is saying, and Tressie McMillan Cottom talks about this, that I cannot make sense of what I'm seeing. You don't fit very easily into a category. And so in order for me to know how to treat you, I need to know who you are and what you are, right? So think about it. I when I come across people, I love adopting my Southern, background. Who are your people? Where you from? When I see a student who might have a name similar to somebody I grew up with, or, my students range in age from 14 to 80. And I'll be like, oh, what neighborhood you grew up in? I knew some people with that name, and it might be connected to, usually it's connected to a good memory. I don't want to reminisce about some people I'm not connected to in a positive way, right? And so when I ask you where you from, I want to know, am I going to treat you good? Am I going to treat you kind? And Anne-Marie says, about the asker girl, that is it. That's right. Because I want to know if I need to waste my time having a conversation with you. What value can I ascribe to who and how you are, and what benefit can I get out of my connection to you? And so I want to slide into the beauty thing again, because Kristen, I like where you were going with the Monique thing too. With the hair thing. So just some quick ideas I want to give you from the book, from that chapter. She says that whatever is commodified is stratified. Whatever is commodified is stratified. So let's break that down quickly. Whatever, beauty is collateral. If you are a beautiful woman, you know that there are plenty of things that you can get. There's plenty of ways that you can negotiate space. Where are you from? Also that question, Tiana. Melanie says that, where are you from? Again, it's a question of positionality. Who can you be connected to? How can we maintain our connection? And what does that say about you, that you are here in this space? What is the collateral that I can gain from being attached to you? Particularly, again, if you are a beautiful person that somebody sees as being comely. There is some sort of commodity in that. And so I have to create a social stratification, some sort of levels, hierarchies of who am I going to give my value to? Who am I going to invest in? Am I going to sell hair products to ugly people who have nappy hair? Can I create a multi-billion-dollar industry off of Black hair when most Black people, most hair product companies and hair stores are not owned by Black people? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we don't have Black dollars in that space. So when we talk about the commodification of beauty, now that we at home and people don't have access to hair products and, hair salons and barbershops, there's some question about the hair salons, the hair stores that you go into. What are they putting back into the community, and who owns those hair stores? So when you talk about beauty in the Black community, it means dollars. It means an investment that dark-skinned women are not being seen as valuable as light-skinned women. And it's not about colorism. This is not about putting Black people, darker skinned people against lighter skinned people. It's saying that whiteness is invested in Black people seeing themselves closer to whiteness. Go to a store when you can, go to a makeup site and see the ways that makeup foundation is layered. You will have a hard time finding foundation shades in the store that go from dark skin to light skin, even though we know that's how the color spectrum works, right? So when we start looking at beauty, there is an investment in being closer to whiteness and ascribing oneself with white values. So what Tressie McMillan Cottom is saying, by virtue of the fact that she is sharing her big Black nose, her big Black lips, her dark skin, is saying, look, I reject your notion of what beautiful is, but I still understand that you see me as ugly. She talks about beauty as oppression. Beauty is not achievable or able to be earned, because whether or not you see me, whether or not I see myself as beautiful, if I'm invested in a larger system that sees whiteness as beautiful, there is no way I can break into that system. So the only way for me to deal with myself is either to kill myself in that system, contort myself to become closer to white, or create a new system in which I might be considered a renegade because I'm talking about black skin, black nose, black lips, black hair, black everything, right? So who among us is going to rebel rouse and say that I am going to love my blackness despite what the world has said to me, right? Black women can never be the kind of beautiful that is reserved for whiteness. She said this, I had to take this quote: ugly is everything done to you in the name of beauty. Let me let you hear that again. Ugly is everything done to you in the name of beauty. When you look at young black girls' bodies, when you look at the way that young black girls move around this world, and you cannot show or give them any indication that their blackness is valued, that because of what you experience as ugly or demeaning, you don't have enough left over to give a young black girl. Like, I grew up watching, well, I don't know if I grew up so much as I watch it now all the time, Good Times. And when I look at Walona, and when I look at Thelma, it's easy to see how absolutely beautiful they are. But how many people look at Florida Evans and look at the rich melanin in her skin tone, and her afro was always sharp and coiffed, right? So when we look at the way that Florida Evans look, people are not describing to look like Florida Evans. People are not describing to look like Maya Angelou. Thelma and Walona would be the more ideal, and they have brown skin, right? So when you add Tressie McMillan's Cottom notion of fatness, her thickness, her thick features, right? So what is the investment in black women and our beauty? Okay. So I want to talk to you a little bit about black women and competency. The next essay is called Dying to be Competent, out of the same collection. And again, she's talking about black women and our bodies and the ways that we are deemed either competent or incompetent. Yes. She has a gap where I love her look too. I can get lost in Tressie McMillan Cottom's face all the time. I think she's absolutely like lush. Like, I just want to look. Ooh, she looks so just, yeah, you know. And I'm glad that she always showcases. I follow her on Instagram too and Twitter. Her Twitter is amazing. But she talks about the ways that women, black women, are considered to be structurally incompetent. And when you talk about notions of incompetence, you have to look at the ways that race, that gender, that capitalism are involved with protecting black women and their ability to be structurally competent. So let me give you an example. She shares a story in the book how she was pregnant with her baby, and she was bleeding. So she went to the hospital, and she bled through the chair before they even put her in a room. And she had been in, she called the doctor. They made her wait a little bit of time, and they finally told her, okay, yeah, you can come in. So she came in, had to wait for a long time to be seen. They didn't do an ultrasound. They accused her of doing something and just sent her home, basically. So some other days went by. She kept laboring in her back. She was having back pain, or pain in her butt rather, that she, of course, as the first time pregnant person, did not recognize that she was having labor pains. So 3 days later, she has to go to the hospital, and she ends up having to give birth to what is a stillborn baby. And so when she talks about structural incompetence, she's looking at her own story of not being able to physically carry her baby. She talks about Serena Williams, and the ways that her own body was challenged physically on the tennis court. You know what they say about Serena Williams' body. Hey, Selena, my sister Selena is in my spirit. So Serena Williams' body. But she talks about Serena Williams having power, right? And for those of you who know her maternity story, she almost died giving birth. Now, Serena Williams is a world-winning championship tennis player. She is a billionaire, married to a billionaire, and she had to use all the power to request a test. Now I'm going to, I got to weave stories of my own in here. When I was 19 years old, well, I got pregnant at 18. I had a baby at 19. But in my 20th week, my water bag broke. So I was a young mom. I had finished hair school. I was working at the bank. Wasn't sure about college yet. And because I was a hairstylist, I didn't have health insurance. So I got on social services so I can get Medicaid to go to the doctor. So when I went to the doctor, when I was pregnant, I was on the phone early one night. Shout out to Niecy and Dutchie. My water bag broke and I went to the hospital. When I went to the hospital, the doctors decided that I needed to be induced. I was 5 months pregnant, 20 weeks. For those of you who don't know, most pregnancies average 38 to 40 weeks. 40 weeks is considered full term. So here you got black 19-year-old me on welfare. And I'm at the doctor's and I hear, they put me on a labor floor. And I hear the two white male doctors in the hallway. And they're talking about me. And they say, we want to induce her labor. She can have a baby tonight. And they decided that they were too busy. They were too busy. So they decided to send me home. So they sent me home the next day and I was supposed to labor and I guess give birth to this dead baby. Well, what ended up happening, I had a secret weapon. My aunt, Ira. My aunt went there and she acted an ass, you hear. She showed out on the people. And when I think about it, she was only 5 years younger than I am now. She wasn't an old woman. She was in her early 40s. And she was pregnant at the same time, which is funny. And she went to that doctor and she was like, nope. And she got me transferred to another hospital. They still did not want to put me on bed rest. So I met a nurse there who was like, oh, I want to be a nurse. So she did some kind of paperwork and I was put on bed rest unwillingly at home. And I had a nurse to come see me every week. So at the time they thought that I would give birth and the baby I would have a dry labor, whatever that was. Well, I ended up staying in bed rest for 8 weeks and I had him at 28 weeks. So they say he was going to be developmentally delayed, physically deformed, all of these sorts of things. So if you've seen my son in real life, you know that he does modeling. He graduated advanced Regents diploma. He was always in honors program. So all of the things that they said about me without examination were supposed to be true about my son. And he stayed in the hospital for 9 weeks in the neonatal intensive care nursery. And I didn't have any money at the time. This is when the parking garages would close at a certain time. So you didn't have to pay for overnight hours. So every night I would get dressed after 9 o'clock and I would put on my clothes and put makeup on and go to the hospital. And I would read his chart and I would notice any medical terms. And I would sit down and I would write the medical terms down in the book. And I would call the secretary, the social worker, and I asked her if I could have a medical, because she gave me a medical dictionary. So she got me a medical dictionary because every time the doctor said tachycardia or bradycardia, I wanted to know what the term meant. So I was a 19-year-old girl by myself advocating for me and this little baby. And when Tressie McMillan Cottom talked about the ways that black women have the highest mortality rate in the United States. And not just that, our mortality rates are on par with underdeveloped countries for black women. So that means that black women die in childbirth or immediately after childbirth at rates that are comparable to underdeveloped nations and one of the most rich nations in the world, right? And so I'm telling you my personal story because I want us to understand that when we talk about the ways that black women carry their babies, that is violence in this country because you are bringing another black body into this world. And so the system is built to destroy. So we're not talking about the one black woman or the two black women. I had 2 other wonderful pregnancies. We're not talking about those experiences. What we do when we examine structural racism is that we look at the patterns. So Tressie McMillan Cottom, despite all of her ability to speak proper, to talk white, to be educated, to be married, she still lost her child in childbirth because she was not believed and then was accused of doing something wrong. Oh, well, why didn't you tell us you were in labor? Well, she didn't know. And who talks about labor pains being in your butt? Who talks about that? So when we start looking at her essay collection, we start looking at the ways that black bodies are examined and parceled out and ignored unless they're of service. Kristen Walker said, I listened to the Audible, me too sis, and I read it, read by the author, and this story particularly resonated with me on the medical industry overlooking the experience of black women. I had my fallopian tube rupture in the ER. Yes. So Kristen came on my show 2 different times, my radio show, and she talked about her experience. I won't share it because it's not my story to share. So anytime, Kristen, if you want to share anything else, again, you guys can visit Flower City Noir Collective and hear more about the social justice movements that have to do with women and their bodies, that have to do with our earth and the way that it impacts us. So when we start looking at women's bodies, how many of you know someone who was pregnant? I have me a just got daughter who just had a baby. And one of the reasons that she chose to have her baby at home and attend her own birth was because she had other births that were disruptive to her spirit. In 2020, we have Black women who are walking away from hospital settings because they know that racism is embedded in the fiber of the way that they push their babies into the world. You understand that? Kristen telling us right here in the comment section that she had a fallopian tube rupture in the ER. I'm telling you about my experiences with the doctors who just said, oh, she can go home and give birth. Well, she'll give birth to a dead baby. We don't have time right now. We don't want to induce her labor. So who is protecting Black women? Who is advocating for Black women? Who is lobbying for Black women? What sort of legislation are we fighting for? Who knows a doula? I know a Black doula. Shout out to Lakeisha Washington. Right? Who knows Black doula? Who knows Black nurse practitioners? Who know Black OBGYN? Black women who are listening to other Black women. We have to get ahead of the trend to heal our own bodies, but that's not how we dismantle the system. We got to dismantle the system because there will always be more power players than there will be resistors. So we have to require that the system changes. So there's somebody saying, oh, I had a baby and my experience was fine. Of course, it's not the only experience. It's the fact that it happens far too many times. So she says, Tressie McMillan Cottom says that Black women's bodies are against most companies' policies. I tell people every day, the way that I do a resistance movement is I walk into a space. That's it. When I walk into an all-white space with this brown skin, this deep brown skin, these full lips, these features, this big old button breast, and pot belly and all, people, Maya Angelou gave y'all the prescription, said, people always wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. When I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies, right? So she told us some phenomenal woman that people will look at you and they will question and wonder, why do people find you so beguiling? Why do they find you so beautiful? You don't look like what the stereotypical image of beauty is. So how dare you be so full of yourself, as Nikki Giovanni said, that you're not starving? Anne Marie says, these discussions are so important. If we are armed with information going into a job, into labor and delivery, we would have been better prepared. When I tell you all my insurance, education, and light brightness wasn't achieved to be believed by those running the show. You better talk about a Black freckle-faced woman. We are dying at record numbers. COVID is just one new way to kill Black and brown communities of color who are poor. You better believe that the deaths that happen against Black people, Black women, that is state-sanctioned violence. Your research. I'm an English professor. There's nothing that I'm going to tell you that's going to be a lie. I research everything. State-sanctioned violence. I love you too, Janella. Check out Janella Baton. I'm shouting out all my sisters and their businesses. She does spiritual teas. She does healing balms for your body and your mind and your spirit. Janella Baton says BETANCES. Janella, drop your business name in the comment section. She got like 3 or 4 because I buy from all of them. But what I want to tell y'all is that these experiences are not by happenstance. And when you come into this book space, it's not to make you feel hopeless. What is to make you understand is that now you have some tools of resistance. Audre Lorde told you that using the master's tools will not dismantle the master's house. Right? So what do we use? Books are collateral. Books are artillery. Books are weapons. Books are tools. Books are instructive. They give us the litmus test, the barometer, the information, the roadmap in order to get free. And you know what we saying? We getting free. We not dying trying. Not at all, sisters. I'm about to save some lives. We're going to save some lives, and you're going to save your own lives. So she says that the medical industry denies the existence of our pain. that healthcare and education are primarily delivered by bureaucracy. Black women are not seen as agentic beings. So we have Janella. She's on Instagram at the Kitchen Table Talk. Check her out there. You'll see her recipe. She's also a caterer, so you can follow her there. But when you look at healthcare and education, these are systems that have rules and regulations about who they want to put forth, who is seen valuable enough. And no matter, as Anne Marie says, no matter how light bright you are, if they don't see you as valuable and recognize your blackness, you will never be seen as enough. Janella Batances also can be found at KTE Catering _intuitive teas, KTT Catering _intuitive teas. I bought plenty of her teas, and my sister could not walk. She had loss of her second child in 9 months. Her 17-year-old died, and then her 23-year-old died earlier this year. Janella contacted me. We got my sister some healing teas. When I tell you that she called my sister, told her what to do with the teas, my sister's leg has felt better than it ever felt on medication. Black women, we are able to heal ourselves in some ways, but that does not mean that we hold the medical profession harmless. They still have a right to do. Because if I go there, I want respect. And I don't want respect because I am a professor. I don't want respect because I'm married. I want to be able to walk into an institution as 1 tooth, keloid scar, on social services, got 75 kids, anything that you deem to be deplorable. I want to be a deplorable and walk into your industry and you treat me like a person, period. And we have to demand that from our systems, right? So when we talk about, getting free, and we talk about the ways that Black women can find some information about healing ourselves, you also can look to Patricia Hill Collins, Kimberly Crenshaw. You can look out on social media. I love Kinfolk Collective. You can look at Black professional Black girls. You can find even the Nat Ministry. That's a Black woman who's talking about rest. So when Tressie McMillan Cottom is talking about our freedom and our healing, she is looking at respectability politics, that some of y'all believe that if you name your kid, I don't know, let's say a Sarah. I don't know. I'm not picking on Sarahs, but if you name her a white sounding name, that somehow that makes her better. Right? If you teach these children that they have to speak what is deemed proper language, then they won't be killed in the street. If you tell a Black girl that, well, if you hang around the right kind of boys, you won't be raped, we know that's not true. So how do we make society responsible for the ways that it treats Black women? Because the responsibility, contrary to public belief, is not on Black women to fix it. You cannot save yourself in ways that we need to be saved. There needs to be a societal backlash to Black women dying in labor or shortly after. There needs to be a backlash to Black trans women getting murdered. There needs to be a backlash to anything that harms our daughters. We have Black women who are getting killed at rates that were comparable to Black men by police officers, and not one time did we have the outcry that we did when Black men were getting killed. Tressie McMillan Cotton challenges us to look at Black women. I'm challenging you to look at the statistics related to Black women and realize that we are fine. We fine with people raping our daughters. We fine with people kicking our girls out of school. Look up the Black girls being pushed out. Check that book out. Look at the ways that we are okay with the ways that administrators position these Black girls and say that they're being defiant in school, insubordinate. But that's just another way for these girls to be kicked out of classes. Hey, best friend. Shout out comedian, always got a show somewhere. Shout, drop your stuff in the comment section. I'm promoting all my sisters. I want to support Black women. I want us to support Black women, whether they being funny, whether they cooking food, whether they are midwives, whether they are writers, whatever. We have to support Black women who are helping other Black women. We have to support Black women who are fighting against capitalist ideologies. We have to support Black women who are fighting the patriarchy, because it's so important that we recognize, in order for us to be seen as full persons, that we must no longer allow politicians to enact state-sanctioned violence against Black people, Black women in particular. We get mad when they do something to Black men, or we get pissed off somebody say something about our sons. But what do we care about our daughters? What about our daughters? What are the ways that we are challenging the system to be kind to our daughters? All right, let me give you some more stuff. We look at black women's bodies as unruly. We consider this matrix of domination. What are the ways that black women are seen as being complicit in their own rapes? What are the ways that we, come on now. All right now, Raquel, hey, love you back. Networks of competence. And then I want to get into very quickly, she talks about knowing your whites, understanding the psychology of white people and the elasticity of whites, right? Yes, sis Kimberly Brunson, drop your business tag up in here. She does beautiful photography. Shouting all my sisters on this thread about black women, right? Hey, Tiana Magnon, this is this opportunity hoarding. So there's some of us who want to be the onlyest. We see one black woman in a space and we like, okay, diversity achieved. But you understand that diversity metrics are created by white people to make them feel good about a lack. Because what diversity means is that there's just one person in there. And that's why in my practice, I don't have a diversity practice. I have an equity and inclusion practice. And I talk about strategy. I tell people all the time, if you hire me, F your feelings. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to make sure that black people, particularly women who are brought into the space, are treated well, period. If you do not have a person who can change policy at this table, no matter how good the check is, and Lord knows I need them checks, I won't take the check. I'm not here to just do a talk on diversity. I'm not here to make you feel good about some made up metro diversity. And Lord knows I need my check. I got 2 kids in college and I'm in college too. Lord knows I need my checks. But I have turned down some nice paying gigs because I refuse to be a pawn of white supremacy. I tell my students that, and I walk the walk as well as talk the talk. We have to make sure that we understand that being the onlyest, that being the only one person, shout out to Rachel de Guzman for that, for, really talking about the onlyest with me. But when we look at spaces that only want one black person in there, we say why. Even people went on art 2x2. Noah had the right idea. There were 2x2. They went on the ark 2x2. So we are not meant to be in singular numbers. We're not meant to be one. We are not meant to be in any space as a one. We need to have other people that can identify with us and have enough of a variety of like-minded people and even diverse-minded people, as long as we can understand that if we can represent at least 13% of the U.S. population, and we definitely built this country. Come on. We definitely built this country. We have to make sure that KB Photography, Kimberly Brunson, we have to make sure that we call the thing a thing. There is no reason in 2020 for people to be talking about black women as something that is not what it is. Let me make it plain for you. When I talk about blackness, and there's a book about this, all the men are black and all the women are white. I forgot the author, but all the men are black and all the women are white. So when we think about that, I want you to really dig deep into this. Kimberly Crenshaw created intersectionality to talk about black womanhood, period. We see people Columbusing this term to a lot of other things. Intersectionality, as it was created by Kimberly Crenshaw, and you can look up her TED Talk, and she will tell you that is the intersection of identities of womanhood and of race, period. We cannot allow ourselves to think that black women are not a special group of people. I don't mean magical. I mean a special group of people that need their own branch of attendance, their own legislation, because the world has done them such a disservice. Okay? So my best friend, Shar the comedian, Shar_B the comedian, co-host on Tickle Me Tuesdays, WXIR 100.9 FM every Tuesday, 7 to 9. Raquel said, we shouting people out. Raquel says, my first time, and this was the Lord, to be among strong, black, beautiful women. Thank you, Father. Amen. Welcome to the space. Or, as Sonia Sanchez said, a woman. Right? I'm telling you, we love us. I never make any mistake about loving black women. And some of us are brave. Yes. Yes. But who's the author, sis? Type the author in the comment section for me. All the men are black, all the women are white, and some of us are brave. Yes, that's the book I'm talking about. Right? So when we talk about black womanhood, please and thank you. When we talk about black womanhood, that is a special category. You cannot extract me from one or the other. When people experience me in the world, they get in all this big black woman's body. They get in all this big black woman name. They get in me. I'm not your nurse wife, your wet nurse. I'm not your mammy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not your auntie. I'm not any of the things that you need me to be because they make you feel better about you placing me as a second class citizen. But what I understand is the state is responsible. The government is responsible for more black women dying in childbirth. And I want to tell y'all about this. We have to do better about protecting young girls and boys from pedophiles and child molesters. If we know that there are people in our family who have molested us, let me say that. If we know that there are people in our families that have molested us, believe your children. But before you believe your children, don't even put them in those situations. And if you cannot move past your own trauma, sis, go get healing. Go get some fixing, because what you are doing is that you are allowing another generation of children. Kristen, you talked about this earlier, about generational curses. So when she talks about R. Kelly, there's always a big debate on Facebook. I've been stopped listening to R. Kelly. Stop watching Woody Allen movies. Stop listening. And God knows I love me some Bill Cosby. Love Bill Cosby. But you know what? Can't rock with you in ways that I used to. You know, we have to do better about black women and girls. When we talk about progress, most people prefer a lack of progress. Most people are committed to black women saying, let me tell y'all this, black women. Let me look at y'all real close. And remember, you can be black no matter if you're black and Latina, black and Asian, or whatever. Y'all got to stop coming to everybody else's rescue. Look at me. Y'all looking at me? I want y'all to look into my eyes, and I want you to understand that we cannot do more for other people than we can do for ourselves, right? We cannot do more for other people than we can do for ourselves. All the men are black, all the women are white. Some of us are brave. Thank you, Kristen. Edited by Barbara Smith. We have to do a better job at taking care of ourselves before anybody else. I'm not going to use that tired, outdated oxygen mask, right? Because that's not working. You tell people on the plane, before you save somebody else's life, you got to pull the oxygen mask onto yourself. I'm going to make a plane. You go ahead and give everything else to everybody else and you're going to die. Period. You go ahead and give everybody else your everything and you're going to die. If you ever have a chance to see the PBS Playhouse version of Ntozake Shange, for color girls who consider suicide when the rainbow wasn't up, right? In there, the actual PBS version, not the Tyler Perry version, but she she gave him her arms, her fingernails, her legs, every part of who she was, so she no longer could recognize herself. How many of us have given so much to our children, so much to our husbands, our wives, our partners, to our jobs? I'm guilty of that. Give so many things away. And then a couple of years ago, when we started having, we've lost 1, 2, 3, I think 8 or 9 close family members in 2 years. And what I had to understand about that, and 2 of them were young people, is that tomorrow truly isn't planned or promised to anybody. And not in the cute way that we say on greeting cards. Like black women, we read these books and these books become instructive for the ways that we live our lives. But I am telling you to take that cape off. And this is coming from somebody who is very involved in the community. This is coming from someone who believes in charity. This is coming from somebody who gives away all my money, who puts me and my family, we work hard on behalf of other people. But one of the things that I realized is that a broken down me does nobody any good, mostly myself. So we can't keep wearing these super women capes. We can't keep saying that we out here, we saving everybody. Give it to a black woman, she'll get it done. No, get that done to a white woman. She ain't doing nothing anyhow. Got me working on hard for her stuff. Nah, sis, you get over here and you do this work. We got to stop living up to this idea that white people will find us acceptable if we start living our lives in the ways that they do. Sister, that's a recipe for a disaster. Martin Luther King was killed in a suit, right? Rosa Parks was mishandled on a bus in a suit coming from a respectable job. How many women were raped in business suits or pajamas or diapers? Let's talk about it. So if respectability politics work, then there's nothing that we would have to do other than dress nice and speak proper English and we will be safe. And that is simply not the truth. Yep. By race, we have more degrees per percentage wise in our race, right? Gloria T. Hull, Patricia Bell Scott, and Barbara Smith. Thank you, little sister. I was guilty of that, Kimberly Brunson, until this year. Me too, sis. I had to stop. I quit a lot of stuff this year. And really, I'm firm in it. Nope. No explanation. We have to make sure that we are not being complicit in our own undoing. And what Tressie McMillan Cottom is offering in her essay collection is ways for us to free ourselves, or at the very least examine the systems that help us get here. Right? So when we talk about Black womanhood, and when we talk about Black girlhood, and this is the last point that I want to make before I get up out of here, I try to keep it to an hour and 15 minutes, is that I really want you to do a self-scan. So with my children, with my 2 children who are still home, we've been doing meditations. So every day we do a 2-part meditation. We do the first part in the morning to get our minds together, well, how we're going to live our day. And then the second part, we do what's called a body scan. And when we do our body scan, we are in conversation with each piece of our body, from our toes all the way up to our head. And we have these conversations so we can be in tune with our feet, with our ankles, with our shins, our kneecaps, our thighs, our buttocks, our bellies, our chest, our throat, our face, our ears, our neck, our back, the top of our head. I want you to do an emotional scan. Many of us are at home in ways that we've never been home before. The doors of the church are not open. Come on, sis. So I want you to do a scan of your body in ways that you have not done before. When you are lying next to your lover and they have a response that you don't deem loving, take note of what your body is doing. When you tell your girlfriend that you got an award and she responds in a way that's not supportive, take a scan of your body. When you are sick at work and you've done so many things and you need to take a day off, listen to what your supervisor says to you and take a scan of your body, right? Now, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you to quit your job, break up with your partner. I'm not telling you to quit your girlfriend. What I'm telling you is that we have to be mindful about the ways that other people's energy reside in our spiritual, our physical, our emotional, and our mental space. And those are the things that we must eradicate. And anytime the worst thing that happens to us, take note of those feelings, because those feelings don't just happen in those worst feeling moments. Right? I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. Those worst feelings don't just happen to us in those worst feeling moments. Some of us, our stomachs hurt. I've always been a worrier. So my grandma's like, you want to get an ulcerated stomach. So I know that if I get that ulcerated stomach around somebody, that's my discernment. That's me saving myself. So if I have 2 or 3 conversations with somebody and that ulcerated stomach feeling comes up, I know that this person is no good for me. And I have to figure out a way to either work with them at a distance, because some of us working with ulcerated stomach givers at our jobs. But what are the ways that I can purify myself? I ain't got no Lake Minnetonka. Shout out to Prince, right? This ain't Purple Rain. But what are the ways that I can save myself? We have to create rituals of wellness in which we scan our bodies and recognize the things that get us out of sorts. And we have to be comfortable with challenging not just ourselves, but our sisters. I say this every month. I am not just my sisters. I am not my sister's keeper. I am my sister. So when I look at my sister, and I mean my biological or my fictive kinship sisters, and they are breaking down, I know that the system of sisterhood is broken. That maybe I can't save my sister in that way, but I can talk to my sister about saving yourself. Sister, you know what? Look what's going on with you. You're looking a little peaked. I know you're trying to, be everywhere, do everything for everybody. I know that you just got your cape out the cleaner, sis, but it's time for you to put that down. You know the best thing you could tell another woman? I see you. I see you. I love you. And I appreciate you. Yes, little sister. That's my real biological sister. Set your intentions. Set your intentions, but not just set them. You got to make sure you live your intentions. Because I know at the beginning of every year, I got a journal. I got a calendar. I got brand new school supplies. I done set my clock. I'm all, I ain't do that junk no more. Not this year. Let it be. You going to get this broken down me any time of year, but I'm going to do this thing that feeds myself. I don't surround myself with people who can't pour into me in ways that feed my spirit. And if I can't pour into them, then I don't even want to be around them either, because it's not fair. You're going to be a whole new person when you go back to work. That's right. We are breaking ourselves down for jobs, for partners, for relationships that might be familial, for connections in the community that don't feed our spirit, because somebody has told us that we are not enough. And with Tressie McMillan Cottom's thick, what she is challenging us to be is to look at ourselves with a fine-tuned mirror. And sometimes I tell my sisters, sis, your mirror is broken. Look at me and let me tell you about you. Let me be your mirror. Let me reflect all your beauty and light. So when people tell me I love you, or I'll give them the same energy back. You comment a heart on my Facebook status, I don't care how tight, I'm commenting a heart too. You telling me I love you, I look beautiful, sis, I'm a reflection of you. Oh, sis, you got it going on, sis, I'm doing this for us. I am nothing without the strength of black women. And I say that with no disrespect to the white women that I have, but I love black women, point blank, in the period. And we got to be okay with saying that. We got to be okay with black spaces. We have to be okay with my black students. Listen, they love having a black professor. And not because I'm a black professor, because I'm a black professor. You understand? Can you dig it, right? I love us. And I love the way that we move. I love us in our various hues. I love us in our complicated language patterns. I love us if we speak in AAVE. I love us if we're speaking in Queens, colonized Queens language. I love us if we standing on the corner trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. I love us if we sitting in the Ivy League trying to make something happen with these folks that don't want us in there. I love us if we shopping at Save-A-Lot or if we shopping at Wegmans. I love us with nappy hair. I love us with straight hair. And it's okay to love us. It's okay to love yourself. It's okay to work on your anti-blackness or your anti-womanness, even if you are a black woman. It's okay. But what we can no longer do is use black women as tools of labor. We can no longer use black women as tools of destruction. Kenya says, I tell black moms and grandmas all the time, we die in silence. Come on, Flower City Nora Collective right now is doing a talk with Audre Lorde's, your silence will not protect you. Ignoring our alarm bells and our struggling organs. So that's right, sisters. As a final word for the night, I want to just have us remember that we always have what we need, whether or not we can access it. This month's book was thick. And other essays, Tressie McMillan Cottom. If you haven't read it, I suggest that you pick up a copy. She talks about race. She talks about politics. She talks about government oversight and lack of oversight in our bodies, the ways that we see and fetishize blackness, the way that we set our young girls up to continue generational curses of being raped. That even if we look at systems of being raped, who wants to tell exactly what happened in the moments after being... Oh, there's one point I want to tell y'all about that. She said that the only way that nurses in hospitals can sign a statement that a woman has been raped or victimized outside the rape toolkit is if they can see bruises on a woman's body. Think about that. Now, I have a lot of red in my skin, and I bruise. This is so big. I have a wound right now that was 7 months old from a simple Band-Aid. Imagine a woman whose skin does not show bruising, who has been raped and victimized. You tell me how that system that requires rape to be validated or violence against you to be validated by visible bruising. And that is a perfect place for us to end our space today, our time together. Many of us are walking around with bruises that we cannot see. There are things that have been done to our bodies, our minds, our spirits that you will never be able to tell by, thank you, love, my shirt is everything. But we got brown skin. That's right. We got brown skin. So here we go. When we think about the ways that our bodies are holding on to memories. I'm walking around right now with a back injury that I've been over medicated, all kind of treated for, and they still don't know what it is. But a black woman came into my office and prayed over me, and she said to God, take this off of her. You've given her something to carry that is not hers. And I had 3 months of being pain-free when she made that proclamation, that petition to God. And so what I understand in this broken down body is that there are things that I am carrying, whether they've been bequeathed to me throughout generations, that I have simply accepted because I believe that they have been my due, that I have said, give it to me. I'm a black woman with a cape. But I'm telling you, black women, I'm asking you that you lay down your burdens, that you lay down the things that shackle you, that you lay down the things that entrap you into believing that you are more important and significant to other people than you really are. You want to make sure that your value to other people is not connected in what you do for them. You want to make sure that when people see you, they see you, that they see your worth, that they see your heart, that they are not going to ask you to do things over and over again that tear you down, that break your spirit, that leave you in stitches, metaphorically or physically. So when we talk about bruises being validated by what is seen, we must understand that there are things that you can't see on us. That we are carrying generations, hundreds of years of enslavement. We are carrying generations of being wet nursed. We are carrying generations of our bodies being fetishized and hypersexualized at the same time with people telling us that we're not desirable. We reject those notions because we know that black women are beautiful, black women are powerful, black women are strong, but black women are also vulnerable. Black women are soft. Black women are delicate. Black women are gentle. Those are ways that they choose to identify themselves. We get to have a multitude of experiences, and it's a continuum. If I am a masculine black woman, that does not mean that I am not soft. If I am a more dainty black woman, that does not mean that I am not tough. We have got to stop putting black women in categories that simply separate them from their sisters, because at the end of the day, we all we got. And in some cases, we all we need. But we are going to make sure that we challenge systems to do better by black people. We're going to vote. You know, black women stay voting. We're going to vote. We're going to love ourselves more first, because when we love ourselves, we fill our own cups first, and then the overflow everybody else can get fed from. So again, I thank you for a wonderful discussion. You all are enhancing my life. Hopefully next month we'll do the fourth Sunday again, but we'll always meet before the end of the month. I want to tell you, I have my bookmarks, but my radio show, you can always go to soulstainableliving@gmail.com. You can go to www.soulstainableliving.com. Please sign up for my mail, my newsletter. And if you haven't liked this page, please do so. Please share this page with other people. I really believe that we have something beautiful here. Sis Kimberly Brunson, I love you. KB Photography, love you and your truth. Thank you so much. I love you all. Be safe. Thank a black woman and be the black woman that you think. Take good care. I love you. God bless you and good night.